pantas.
Before we start, you need to check out the Backrooms, 1998. Just dropped on Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. This terrifying game puts you in the eerie depths of the Backrooms, where a monster is always listening. Literally. It can hear your voice through your microphone, so stay quiet if you want to survive. Support the solo developer and dive into the nightmare now.
Someone!
At the beginning of the movie, a man named Wahyu is seen interviewing another man named Miko. Miko tells him that it happened in 2016. At that time, he was the chief of the scout crew for the annual camping trip, which was a routine school activity. Miko then asks Wahyu how he learned about the mass possession incident. Wahyu explains that he heard about it from a friend. His friend mentioned that once a year, Miko takes his friends back to the same campsite. There is also a rumor that Miko has been practicing magic and making deals with the devil. Miko then asks if the interview is meant to clear up the rumors his friend told him. Wahyu denies this, explaining that he is writing a book, and that the interview is for research purposes. Later, Miko shows some notes and explains that year, they had tried to find a location different from the previous year, a place that was rarely visited. He admits that they never imagined it would change their lives forever. He then shows a photo of a girl named Rini and says, "If I had known she would end up like this, I would have never let her come along." The scene then transitions to 2016, where Rini is seen inhaling her asthma medicine. Her friend Nayla joins her and asks, "Why do you keep pushing yourself?" Rini responds, "I just want to get a good score." Nayla scoffs, "A good score? What if you faint during the camping trip? What are you trying to prove?" Rini sighs, "I just don't want our squad to lose because of me." Nayla reassures her, "It's okay if we lose." Rini says, "Once in a while, I just want to be accepted, not just be a burden." To distract her, Nayla changes the subject. "I just hope there aren't any ghosts at the campsite." Then she teases Rini, "But why would you care? You have Miko to save you." Rini blesses and asks her to stop. The scene then cuts to Miko surveying the location for the camping trip. Camp leader Haru says, "This is a great spot." Miko then turns to his other friend, Chandra, and instructs him to inform the others that they will be heading south for this year's camping trip. Chandra nods and takes a photograph of the location. Later, the three of them visit the village elder, Grandpa Santo, to seek permission for camping. However, Santo immediately refuses, explaining that no one camps there anymore, and that the area should have been closed off. Haru tries to convince him, saying, "It's just a small group of people, and I will personally ensure everyone's safety. It's only for 3 days. I understand that you're worried. Please let us know if there are any conditions you'd like us to follow." The scene cuts to Miko showing the campsite to the students and informing them that it is called Wana Alus. He explains that this is a spring area and is off limits, as there are rules set by the locals that must be followed. Meanwhile, Nayla discreetly Googles the location on her phone and discovers that students went missing in Wana Alus. Turning to Rini, she whispers, "Ever since the mass possession happened in 2004, the locals wanted the place to be closed off, but over time, the news was forgotten." Rini dismisses it and tells her to keep quiet. As the students' camping supplies are being checked, Rini presents her medicines to the organizers. Lydia says, "Are you camping or opening a pharmacy? If you're that weak, you should just stay home. Leave these here. We have a first aid kit." Just then, Fina announces, "After this, we have a rehearsal before we go home." The scene cuts to the students rehearsing a play, where a girl named Kiki is playing the role of Roro Putri. As the rehearsal progresses, blood starts dripping from Kiki's nose. Other students take her to the medical room. A student asks Hiru if they should continue the rehearsal and what they should do about Roro Putri's character. Hiru decides to wrap up for now, assuring him that he'll figure out a solution for Roro Putri's role. He then checks the list of students participating and discovers that Rini's birth date also falls on Kliwon Tuesday, just like Kiki's. Immediately, he calls out Rini and asks if she can replace Kiki. Rini hesitates to accept the offer, but Hiru reassures her that she would only be an understudy for now. Nayla encourages Rini, giving her the confidence to accept the offer. Next day, Miko and his team arrive at the campsite a day before the official camping date. There, Santo is seen performing a ritual. Miko asks what it is for. Santo explains. For Javanese people, asking for permission is important. Paying respects, seeking consent. He then buries an offering in a small hole in the ground and carefully covers it with soil. He instructs, "Remind your friends that this area is not your place. Do not let your actions disturb God's beings who once lived or died here. And most importantly, the buried offering must never be dug up." Miko returns to his friends and tells them they must always be respectful here. Just then, he notices a distant figure, which vanishes instantly. Alarmed, he steps forward to investigate, but Santo taps him from behind and warns, "Don't wander too far. I haven't buried an offering there." Later that night, Miko is seen digging up the buried offering. He sprinkles some rice grains on it and cover it up with soil. He then scatters more rice over the spot. But as he leaves, a gust of wind scatters the rice away. Next morning, the students arrive at the campsite village. As soon as they step out, Rini starts vomiting, and Nayla quickly helps her. Then the group moves forward in a line. They cross a wooden bridge, and as Rini steps onto it, she suddenly hears a faint humming sound and stops. Just then, Lydia calls out for her to keep moving, and the group finally reaches the campsite. Miko glances at Rini and gestures, asking if she's okay. Rini nods and smiles. Miko then officially welcomes everyone to the camping trip. He asks everyone to take a moment to pray according to their own beliefs. As they begin praying, Rini suddenly senses a strange presence, and she falls down. A few girls laugh at her. Later, Rini sits quietly in her tent when Nayla approaches and asks what she saw. Rini dismisses it, saying, "Nothing." Just then, Kiki calls out to Rini. She taunts her, saying, "Haru told me you're my understudy for Roro Putri's role." She extends Roro Putri's dress toward Rini, then pulls it back, saying, "But you won't be wearing this." Nayla supports Rini, saying, "We all want this event to go well. A backup won't hurt." Kiki then shoves the dress into Nayla's hands and walks away. Meanwhile, Lydia is seen posting a "No tents here" notice on a tree when she spots a woman walking in the distance. Curious, she follows and finds a tent in the restricted area. Alarmed, she informs Miko, then cautiously peeks inside. As she looks out, the atmosphere around her shifts. Terrified, Lydia tries to inform Miko, but a strange hum interrupts. A chilling voice whispers, "Go back home." Startled, she shuts her ears, but after a while, she noticed that everything is normal. The scene cuts to Rini as she hears humming coming from inside her tent. Curious, she approaches the tent and notices a woman inside. Suddenly, Nayla taps her from behind. When Rini checks inside again, she finds no one. Meanwhile, Lydia meets Miko and tells him that something strange happened in the forbidden area. Her walkie-talkie was making strange noises, warning them to go home. Miko calms her down and asks her to return to the camp, urging her not to mention this to anyone. Miko then heads to the forbidden area, where he finds Lydia's walkie-talkie. He looks around cautiously before sprinkling yellow rice grains in the area. Just then, he notices a snake and stumbles backward. The snake tries to bite him, and he frantically cuts off its head with a knife. But when he looks again, the snake is nowhere to be found. Later, the students participate in group activities and competitions. Rini's team is seen losing every competition due to her weak body and illness. She feels bad that her team is losing because of her, but her teammates console and support her. Rini is then seen in the washroom area when she hears a group of girls approaching. Quickly, she hides inside one of the washroom. The girls begin chatting, mocking Rini's frail body. Kiki snaps, "How can she even think she's fit to replace me as Roro Putri?" Listening from inside, Rini silently absorbs their harsh words. Once the group leaves, Rini finally steps out of the washroom and starts walking away. Just then, she hears the sound of a door shutting and faint sobbing. Curious, she approaches the washroom and asks, "Who's there? Let's go back together." As she is about to knock, it slowly creaks open. Riney peers inside, but there's no one. She turns, running back, where she spots a woman's reflection in the mirror. She quickly turns around, but there's nothing there. Just then, she notices a gemstone ring lying on the floor. Hesitantly, she steps closer to it, and the moment she picks it up, a snake bites her hand. Stumbling back, she spots the snake slithering away. Terrified, she sprints toward the exit. Just then, the washroom door swings open on its own and then slams shut. The scene cuts to the students playing relay race. Riney takes a deep breath, and as she starts running, she performs phenomenally. Chandra captures the moment. Riney's team wins the race, but Chandra notices something unusual in the photos. Later, when Chandra reviews the photographs, he spots a shadowy figure behind Riney. Later, Miko is seen with Hiru. Miko informs him, "I saw a snake here. It bit me, but when I cut it, it just disappeared." Hiru looks at him and asks, "Did you do what I told you to?" Miko replies, "Yes." Then Miko asks, "Can this yellow rice really protect us?" Hiru nods. Just then, Chandra calls Miko for the event. As Miko leaves, Hiru pulls out some old pages from his bag and begins reading spells from them. Suddenly, Hiru starts vomiting, and yellow rice begins spilling out from inside him. The scene shifts to the students performing in the semaphore competition. Faina gives Mata the word to act out. But suddenly, Mata gets possessed. He starts his act, and the students begin guessing the word. Faina quickly realizes that it's not the word she gave him. The students start to piece together the words he's acting out: revenge, blood, and tears. Mata suddenly screams. She will rise again to take revenge. He then climbs onto the bridge wall and jumps down. The students scream in shock. Faina and Chandra rush to him. Mata suddenly wakes up and begins hitting his head violently on the rock. Terrified, everyone quickly lifts him up and rushes him away from the scene. Later, Mata is still possessed. Faina pleads with Hiru for help. Hiru tells them to calm down and begins reading a spell. Mata suddenly sits up and snarls, "Who do you think you are?" He laughs darkly. Just then, Rini sees a woman appear. When she looks at Hiru, the woman disappears. But when Rini looks back, the woman is closer, then vanishes again. Rini hears, "Who are you looking for?" and turns to find the woman in her lap. Terrified, Rini jumps back and runs into her tent. Mata sits up again and declares, "You should all be punished." He looks at Hiru and says, "I will never take your orders. You should follow mine." Hiru tells Lydia to call Miko. Meanwhile, Rini enters her tent, breathing heavily in fear. Suddenly, she hears humming and sees a shadow outside her tent. A figure of a woman dancing and singing, slowly approaching the entrance. Rini watches in terror as the shadow disappears. Frantic, she immediately crawls into her sleeping bag. After a while, she peeks out from her bag and finds nothing. Just then, the woman rises behind her from inside the bag and whispers, "Come with me." Rini screams, and the scene cuts to black. Then we see Miko arrives at Santo's house for help and explains that one of the kids got possessed. Back at the campsite, Mata is still possessed. Suddenly, Kiki starts laughing, falls to the floor, and becomes possessed as well. Haru tries to calm her, but Rini appears from behind asking, "Why are you crying?" Kiki suddenly joins her hands, starts crying, and pleads, "Forgive us, Your Grace. Please don't let us die." Just then, Santo arrives, and all three collapse. Haru orders them to be taken to the infirmary tent. At the infirmary, Santo reads a spell and applies something to Mata's arms. Mata suddenly sits up, pointing at Rini and screams, "How dare you come back to this place? Leave." Rini starts to get off her bed, and Kiki also sits up. Rini responds, "You do not belong here. Wait for my revenge." She screams, "Leave!" Kiki kneels in front of Rini, crying, "Forgive us, Your Grace." Tears roll down Rini's cheeks. Santo advises Haru, they all must be taken away from this place. The scene cuts to everyone leaving the place, but it's raining heavily. As they move forward, they discover that the bridge is broken. Santo tells Miko that he's going to alert the villagers so they can fix it, but it will take a while. He advises everyone to wait there and requests Miko to stop all camp activities until he returns. Hiru interrupts, reassuring Santo, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everyone." He then orders everyone to return to the camp. Santo asks Miko to check the offerings they buried, worried that someone might have dug them up. He also specifically tells Miko to look after Rini before leaving. Later, Hiru enters the infirmary tent and tells the people inside to take a break. As they leave, he pulls out the pages and begins reading the spell. He sprinkles yellow rice on Mada's chest and forms a triangle. Suddenly, Mada sits up. Haru joins his hands and says, "Welcome, my lord." Mada asks, "What do you want, my child?" Hiru replies, "I want the Makudoromo gemstone." Mada tells him, "The Makudoromo is already in possession of someone in this camp." Hiru asks, "How can I know who it is, my lord?" Mada instructs, "There's a source of water in this forest. Take everyone there, and the Makudoromo gemstone shall appear." Without warning, Hiru knocks him unconscious. Meanwhile, everyone is having dinner. Lydia notices that Rini is not eating and asks, "What are you staring at? Eat your food." On the other side, Fina, Miko, and Chandra are discussing whether to call off the camp. Haru joins them, asking, "Why are you all so afraid?" "Everyone's already forgotten everything," Chandra responds. "Santo has instructed to halt all activities." Hiru reassures them, saying, "Trust me, I've already told Miko how to keep us all safe." The scene shifts to Lydia ordering Rini to eat. Rini replies, "Usually when I eat, I have entertainment." Lydia snaps, "Who do you think you are?" and storms off. Just then, Lydia falls to the ground and begins vomiting insects. She then starts dancing and singing, "You did nothing wrong, yet you died for nothing. You wished to live happily, but ended up in agony. How sad your life was." Hearing the screams, Miko and the team rush to the scene. Lydia continues singing, "What sins did you commit in the past? Oh, princess, what an unfortunate life. May this be the right end, even if it's full of scars." She then pleads, "Forgive me, your grace," and begins banging her head on the floor. Suddenly, Haru arrives, whispers a spell while holding Lydia's forehead, and she lets out a scream before collapsing, returning to normal. Haru orders that Lydia be taken to the infirmary. He then instructs the others to return to their tents, reminding them that they must wake up at midnight for another activity called the Test of Courage. Chandra asks Miko, "Why are we still doing these activities?" The scene then cuts to Nayla waking up. She asks Rini to accompany her to the washroom. Rini slowly turns her head toward her. In the washroom, Nayla complains about how dirty it is. Just then, a snake slithers in. Nayla spots it and immediately rushes outside. The snake moves toward her. Nayla calls out Rini for help. Rini steps forward, her gaze steady, and somehow controls the snake, making it retreat. Still shaken, Nayla asks, "Why aren't you saying anything?" Rini says, "Do you understand what a snake symbolizes? A snake is a sign that this place is protected by Sapto Pratolo, Earth's ruler. It is a place where humans do not belong." She then adds, "Someone among you has evil intentions." With that, she leaves. Meanwhile, Miko questions Haru. "Why are we still going through with the test of courage?" He argues, "If we're resuming the activities, we should have Santo's permission." Hiru firmly responds, "Santo said it will take him a long time to return. Everyone has worked so hard for this camp. Do you want us to lose to last year's camp?" Miko asks, "But what if something happens again?" Hiru reassures him, "Just do as I told you." Later, Miko is seen sprinkling yellow rice around the area near their camp. Just then, he notices Rini crying for help and runs into the woods. He runs behind her and looks around frantically. Just then, a figure appears behind him. Miko rushes to Rini's tent, only to find her there, safe. Miko is then seen instructing the students for the Test of Courage activity. Once ready, they all move ahead into the woods. Chandra's team walks cautiously, each member blindfolded. Suddenly, Chandra hears footsteps nearby. He stops, flashes his torch in that direction. In the distance, he spots a man. He then notices a group of men standing behind his team. Panic sets in, and they all break into a run except for Rini, who is transported to another realm, where the mysterious men begin to gather around her. Meanwhile, after reaching a certain point, the team removes their blindfolds. That's when Nayla realizes that Rini is missing. Chandra immediately informs Miko. Chandra's team then spread out to search for Rini. Suddenly, Nayla's headlamp flickers and goes out, and she falls. As she tries to fix it, she realizes there's a grave right in front of her. She turns around, only to come face to face with a pokong. The pokong looms closer, and Nayla lets out a blood-curdling scream. Meanwhile, Chandra continues searching for Rini when he spots a man in the distance, performing a ritual, a snake coiled around his body. Just then, Miko reaches Chandra. Chandra tells him that he saw Heru and a snake was wrapped around him. As Chandra is leading Miko to the spot, they hear a scream. Then, we see that Nayla is now possessed. She screams, "Where is my shroud?" The other students struggle to restrain her as she thrashes wildly. Together, they manage to bring her back to the camp. Nayla screams, "My shroud!" Faina immediately grabs a few sheets and spreads them on the ground. The others help lay Nayla on the sheets and begin wrapping her, forming a makeshift shroud. Just then, one by one, other students start getting possessed. Suddenly, Mata appears. Miko pushes him back, but Mata kicks Miko to the ground. As Mata is about to attack Miko, Santo suddenly appears and make Mata to collapse. Santo yells at Miko, "Why did you continue with the activities?" He then demands, "Where is Heru?" Miko replies that he has no idea. Heru is then seen, wrapped in a snake, performing a ritual. He enters the other realm where Rini is captured by the mysterious men. Suddenly, they hear women singing in the distance, and the men quickly leave. Confused, Rini sits under a tree and tries to remove the gemstone ring from her finger. Just then, a woman appears before her and says, "Come with me." Rini then holds the woman's hand. The scene shifts to Santo, who is treating the possessed students. As he reaches Nayla, she begins to scream uncontrollably. He carefully begins to untie the knot of her shroud. Nayla screams at him to stop and begins scratching her own cheeks, peeling off her skin as she continues to scream. The scene then cuts to Miko and the others, still searching for Rini. Miko starts sprinkling yellow rice. Suddenly, he spots the mysterious men in the distance. At that moment, the people with Miko begin to get possessed, harming themselves in the process. Meanwhile, in the other realm, Rini is with the woman. The woman says, "I've been waiting for you forever." Rini asks, "Who are you?" The woman replies, "I am Roro Putri." She continues, "Until this day, I've been hiding from the soldiers you saw earlier." Rini asks, "Why do they want to catch you?" Roro Putri answers, "Because they fear I might kill their king in revenge." Just then, Roro Putri notices a snake nearby, and she turns to Rini, snapping, "Why have you brought someone here who wants something from me?" On the other hand, Chandra brings his injured friends back to the camp to Santo. Santo asks, "Does anyone know where your camp leader Heru is?" Chandra responds, "Last night, I saw him near the spring, meditating. He had a snake wrapped around his body." Chandra then leads Santo to the spot where he saw Heru. Upon reaching the location, Santo notices a circle made out of yellow rice. He frowns and says, "Someone dug up the offerings." Chandra asks, "What is the yellow rice for?" Santo explains, "The yellow rice is a sign for the unseen forces around here. It invited them here, signaling that something is about to be presented." Miko is then seen running desperately from one of the mysterious men. As he runs, he crashes into a tree and falls to the ground. The scene shifts back to Roro Putri, who is smelling Rini. She says, "You smell delightful, child. I never choose the wrong people. I know there's something you desire." Rini then begins to take out the gemstone ring. Roro Putri tells her, "This ring allows you to control every living being and grants any wish. I give it to you, child, but only if you help me seek my revenge." Rini asks, "What revenge?" Roro Putri replies, "What? I thought you knew. The play you're about to perform is the story of my life. I am an unfortunate princess, betrayed and killed by the prince I loved. All of this happened because of his father, who made him a king. Now it's my time for revenge." She steps closer to Rini and adds, "Or perhaps it's someone else who wants my ring?" Roro Putri then turns to Heru, who is sitting at a distance, chanting spells. He suddenly sees Roro Putri in front of him and immediately joins his hands, saying, "Please accept my worship. Roro Putri, ruler of this forest. This is what I can offer to get what I want." Roro Putri asks, "What could you possibly offer?" The scene cuts to Heru waking up Miko. Miko says, "Rini is missing." Heru then points to Rini, who is sitting at a distance, unconscious. Later, Santo asks Heru, "Why are you here? What are you looking for? Be honest, are you the one who dug up the offerings and spread the yellow rice everywhere? Haru responds, the important thing is that I brought Rini back. She's safe, he continues. There has to be an offering to save the kids. Santo asks, what kind of deal did you make with her? Haru reveals, I promised to perform a play about her life story, but with a twist. In it, she survives, Santo warns. It's very dangerous, Haru replies. Is there any other way? Then Miko narrates to Wahyu later that night, everyone at the camp, as if in a trance, prepared for the play. I still don't understand why Haru was so desperate to perform it. Was it for our safety or for selfish reasons? Also, I still can't make sense of it. Why didn't Santo try to exorcise Roro Putri's spirit from Rini? Was it because he wasn't strong enough to perform such an exorcism? The decision between going home and continuing still haunts me to this day. The play starts, and now Rini is possessed by Roro Putri. Haru starts. This story begins when the princess has hardly come of age. The soft and kind girl is carried away with the image of luxury and the king's love. But, as fate would have it, she can't escape it. The princess, who is about to be made a concubine, receives forbidden love from the crown prince. As time goes by, the prince can only suppress all his feelings of forbidden love. With his feelings long suppressed and suffocated, the prince is burdened with a curse, a prolonged sickness that came from nowhere. Unable to bear what happened to his beloved nephew, the uncle asks the prince and princess to leave the palace. Just then, Lydia starts singing, How sad your life was, princess. You did nothing wrong, but you ended up dead. Haru continues, but as fate would have it, as it can't be avoided, the news of their marriage eventually reached the king's ears. Wrath, anger. The king is angry. He orders the crown prince, giving him a tough choice to choose his love or the power his father offers. But as fate would have it, as it can't be avoided, the prince must choose one of the two choices. However, this is not a love story. It is a story of revenge. This time, Roro Putri, fully in command, points the knife at the prince and declares, Now, I will rewrite this story, before driving the knife into him. Just then, Lydia vomits insects, and everyone around her begins to get possessed one by one. Haru approaches Roro Putri, but suddenly, she leaves Rini's body and appears behind her. As Haru kneels before her, the others around them remain possessed. Meanwhile, Rini notices that Miko is injured. Haru says, My work here is done. Now, where's the Makudoromo ring? Roro Putri points toward Rini. Haru turns to her. Rini, give me the ring. Rini slowly removes the ring from her finger. Miko says, Run, Rini. Rini takes off, but the possessed crowd tries to grab her. Haru manages to grab her leg, but Rini throws the ring into the fire. Suddenly, everyone snaps out of possession. The fire extinguishes, and a smoke figure emerges, spreading through the air before everyone collapses. Rini then approaches Roro Putri. She says, I told you, I never choose the wrong people. You smell lovely, and your heart is pure. Rini looks over at Haru, who is crying. She asks, What about Haru? Roro Putri replies, He will get what he desires, but only in his mind. As for you, my dear, I will protect you, just as you protected me. She embraces Rini, and they both shed tears. Moments later, Rini collapses. Later, Rini wakes up inside a tent. Beside her, Neira also stirs awake. They share a hug, and Rini asks, What happened to your face? Just then, Fina enters, followed by Kiki, who apologizes. Miko arrives, and Rini hugs him. One by one, they all join in a heartfelt embrace. Miko narrates, I wish I had known from the start that Haru had hidden intentions for bringing us there. As they all leave Wana Elus, Miko continues narrating, Since that day, we've never seen Haru again. He never returned for leading the camping trips of future batches. I told you we all made it out alive, Wahyu, but Rini was never the same. As you know, for the past 7 years, we've returned to Wana Alice every year, but it's not out of nostalgia. Then, Santo is seen speaking politely, Princess. We have brought Rini here again. I beg of you, please let her go and allow her to come home. Rini slowly turns to face them. Her expression shifts into a mischievous smile. The screen fades to black. Then Haru is seen deep in the woods, lost in his own world, imagining the ring on his finger, and the movie ends here. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.